Let me ask a few more questions here, if I may. Speaking to recreation and some of the concerns that I raised earlier about the permitting issues in both the Tongass and the Chugach. As you recognized, we were able to include $2 million in additional funding for the recreation, the heritage, and wilderness line item. There's also an additional $1.5 million in land ownership and access management to address the permitting specifically. So we've worked on the funding side. It's good, but now we need to kind of break this loose. And the effective moratorium that I referenced earlier in the Chugach has been lifted, but we still have a real issue with regards to access for recreational activities in the Chugach. Seward and Cordova, both of them would like to expand their tourism season to include some winter activities, because right now they're very limited, but the opportunity to do heli-skiing would be a great opportunity for, again, some of these smaller operators. The current leadership doesn't want to consider any new heli-ski permits until the land management revision plan is completed, which is still a few years away. That's kind of tough for these small operators to be told, well, you know, wait until we get this plan complete. So I guess the question to you is, why is the Forest Service seemingly dragging its feet when it comes to permitting for our outfitters and guides in the Chugach, given that, again, we've put in place some resources to provide for additional permitting. And what I need, Ms. Christensen, is your commitment to initiate a fair permitting process there in the Chugach and in the Tongass for our recreational permits.
Yes, I really do understand, Senator, and you have my commitment. It is true that our process for permitting was cumbersome and outdated, and we have put some real focused efforts on improving our special use permits. We have 77,000 special use permits across the system with a demand for many more. That doesn't excuse us from not being responsive to the public and to the needs of the local economy. I can assure you we have caught up on the backlog, and thank you for your help on the Chugach in particular. And they have really been they've been an early adopter of trying out these new processes. It is also true that we need to have our zoning, if you will, of the forest land, the forest management plan, and the Chugach is soon to release their draft forest management plan. So we see those two coming together very soon, but I will work with my leaders in the field to ensure that we are as responsive as we can be, and we keep pressing on these improvements to be responsive.
Well, I appreciate your commitment. You know, the heli-skiing operations that we're talking about in the Chugach, again, two small operators, down in southeast, down in the Tongass area, as you know, we have significant tourist visitorship. We had over 1 million tourists last summer. We expect to see more this summer. And at the same time that we're seeing a rise in tourism, we're seeing a reduction in the number of permits that are being issued to our air taxi operators. The number of permitted landings that they can do in the Misty Fjords, and for bear viewing at Trader Cove and at Ann. And so what is happening is we're seeing a reduction in the number of permits that are issued, and more of the tourism operators are being pushed into the same areas. So what happens is you have congestion. You've got, just think about the scenario. The cruise ship comes in at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. They have 6 hours, 8 hours, and 8 hours in port, let's say. So you have these air taxi operators, these small float planes that have a very, very, very narrow window of time within which to take their passengers, these tourists, for this extraordinary opportunity, and do it safely, because we have to have it done safely. And so what we're seeing is more and more are pushed to the same area, which, again, when you're a small float plane flying around and not every day is a perfect sunshine day, we don't want to see congestion that could result in an accident. So I need your folks to take a very, very critical look at both the Tongass and the Chugach to evaluate additional areas that can be made available for our tourism operators, and see if more landings, more user day can be permitted. And my first round of questioning to you was directed on how we're going to be able to revitalize, and I even hesitate to use that word, but to breathe some life into a struggling timber economy in Southeast. And I have those that will oppose me at every turn if I even suggest harvesting one tree on the Tongass. And they always say, go to the tourism, that's your industry, that's your industry. Well, the industry is still within the Tongass National Forest, and you all, as an agency, still control what everybody does there. So whether it's cutting a tree or allowing us to have a flight seeing opportunity in some extraordinary areas, we're still coming to you hat in hand saying, allow us to have this economy, allow us to have some kind of an economy. So I need you to work with us on the timber management side in a way that again allows for a small timber harvest. And when I say small, I recognize that we're the largest national forest in the country, and we cannot even get what some would describe as an infinitesimal amount of harvest out of the Tongass right now. And then when we go on the other side to look at recreation, again, we have limitations that most would say that just doesn't make sense. So I'm asking for your help with that.
Senator, as you know, I'm getting up to speed, and I'm learning a lot thanks to your help about the issues in Alaska. I do know and feel the needs of Southeast Alaska in particular, and you have my commitment that we will look at the balance of all multiple uses, and that there's many sectors, both the economy and the culture and the way of life in Alaska, particularly Southeast, and that the national forests there do have a great impact and opportunity, and I want to make it an opportunity where we can.
Well, thank you. And you mentioned the culture. Many in Southeast are Native people, Tlinkits, Tsimshian, Haida, other Alaska Natives who may have served in Vietnam at the same time that other Alaska Natives around the state were able to make selections under the Native Land Claims Settlement Act. They were unable to make applications since they were serving our country when ANCSA was enacted. And we have been trying for years, for decades now, to finally see an equitable distribution to those Vietnam veterans. Obviously, a critically important issue for them. Another measure that we have been working as it relates to our Native people, directs the Forest Service to work with Department of Interior to study a potential land exchange there in the Chugach, to allow Chugach Alaska Corp. To exchange their lands that were contaminated from the Exxon Valdez oil spill. These are just two of the issues that are very, very important to Alaska Natives, whether down in the Tongass area or up in the Chugach. So I'd like your commitment to work with me on these issues and others that are part of our ANCSA Improvement Act.
Senator, you have my commitment. Absolutely.
Good. Thank you for that. Last question for you, and this is very parochial here, but this also relates to some land in down in the southeast. Forest Service has been working on acquiring lands at Cube Cove in Admiralty on Admiralty Island from Shiatica Native Corporation there in Sitka, and we've got some split estate ownership issues. Funding was included in the budget deal to acquire the next few tracts. So the land acquisition is almost complete. This has been one of these torturous, it just seems like it's taken forever to resolve this. But Forest Service is only acquiring the surface rights, knowing that the surface estate could be impacted if minerals are discovered, because the regional corps have the rights to development under both ANCSA and ANILCA. And I know that your staff has been working to find a solution to gain the subsurface to these lands. So I don't know if you're up to speed on this, whether you have any status update as to where we are in finally resolving this.
Yes, I am aware. I know that we are working with Sea Alaska on the subsurface issue and opportunity. There is some differences about the potential evaluation of those subsurface. And Sea Alaska, after a meeting our folks had in February, they informed us that they were going to hire an outside consultant to evaluate what might be entailed in those subsurface minerals.
Not necessarily an appraisal.
No.
But an assessment of the resource?
That's how I understand it, Senator, and that this was something that they wanted to do. So we are, of course, anxiously awaiting to get back with them after that consultation.
Okay, okay. I thought that was going to be my last question, but let me throw one more out at you, and this relates to improving the agency's NEPA processing. Forest Service has launched this advance notice of proposed rulemaking on NEPA, working on ways to make it more efficient and comply with environmental laws. I have heard some concerns about how the effort is being conducted, so just wondering what the status of this review is, where next steps are taking you, and as you're dealing with this NEPA review effort. And also, we've heard that there's possibly non-federal entities that have been holding sessions related to the NEPA review effort. So just if you can give me the status on where we are with this.
Yeah, Senator, we're trying to be well informed about the issues and opportunities around the whole process. So we did hold 10 roundtables across the U.S. and one technical session. We partnered with the National Forest Foundation to help us with those roundtables. They did bring in a couple partners to help with the facilitation. We were very balanced in who were at and attended and had input into those roundtables. I'd be glad to talk to you any more about concerns that you've heard.
That might be worth a conversation with our staffs, just so that we've got a little bit of the background to respond to some of the concerns that have been raised with us.
I'd be glad to.
Okay, good. Well, we are approaching the noon hour. I appreciate you being here this morning, being as responsive as you have been to the wide variety of questions that have been posed by members. Obviously, this This is an important agency, not only for the committee, but really, it's an important agency for the management of so much of our lands across the country. So as we deal with some of these challenges, whether it be fire, whether it be timber harvest, whether it be recreation, grazing, know that we as a committee stand ready to work with you and your team. You've taken on a lot in just 6 weeks, and I think your background, actually being on the ground in the forests, working it, gives you a good perspective on the needs of the agency. But I also recognize that you're dealing with a big bureaucracy here. So we wish you well in that, and I appreciate your leadership. Thank you. We stand adjourned.